Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Searles and this is my week 6 discussion post. From the textbook, EAN is viewed as an alternative despite a resolution process where two conflicting parties can explore some of the possibilities that are perhaps likely to occur in case the issue is brought before the court. It seems to be an ideal approach that can prevent expenses incurred through formal litigation and also helps the two parties to preserve their relationship. The article I found is an article by Zaki, which focused on the use of EAN in the pre-discovery phase of complex civil litigation. The study found that subject to certain modifications of any local procedural rules in a jurisdiction, EAN remains a viable mechanism to be integrated into the civil court system to counter obstacles in discovery of documents in complex civil litigation. Both the textbook and the article highlight the benefit of using EAN as an alternative approach that reduces the time spent by litigants in dealing with complex cases, which can also be costly in the long run. The journal was looking at EAN as a time-saving process before the actual litigation from the perspective of complex civil cases, which are typically, very time-consuming from the onset of the cases. The second alternative dispute resolution is the use of an alternative dispute resolution board. The textbook explains this approach as the use of a joint board of experts agreed upon by the disputants. The board then issues a non-binding ruling on contract issues. The purpose is to reduce potential for litigation, as is the case for the previously discussed EAN. My selected article is written by a former president of the DRB, which is Peter Chapman. The article highlights the reasons why one should opt to use DRBs as an alternative dispute resolution, specifically in construction projects, noting the history, composition, and benefits of DRBs. Both the article and the textbook reiterate the fact that using dispute boards remains effective in reducing the number of issues that, tend to become full-blown disputes that engage the parties in time-consuming and costly arbitration and/or litigation. The article did not expand much on what was already covered in the textbook. However, the authors reiterate the importance of good job site communication and how a proactive dispute board, particularly on international contracts, can positively influence on-site relationships and project management process. Many trials, according to the text, involves a voluntary non-binding alternative dispute resolution between disputants, preferably in cases that do not require statutory interpretation of the law and/or binding precedents. The article I selected on this matter is an article by Louis Barr, which focuses on the logic behind the use of mini trials in resolving conflicts that involve corporate entities. The main argument here presented by the author is that corporate trials are costly and do not serve the best interest of organizations. I can reflect on the conclusions made between the textbook and the article concerning mini trials by noting that it is a cost-effective approach that shows or proves to the disputants the prospects of placing the dispute before a court of law in comparison to solving it amicably using an ADR process. The article builds up and builds upon the application of mini trials as a tool that disputants can use during negotiations to dissuade any party from proceeding to courts, highlighting the likely outcomes that could arise from the court process. The last ADR approach is summary jury trial. The textbook explains it as a non-binding trial that is usually completed within a day and follows the discovery phase of case preparation and occurs prior to actually going to full trial. It tends to be an ideal approach compared to the lengthy and tedious full jury trial. The article found for summary jury trial is quite an old article that was written in 1985 by Thomas Lambros. The article highlights the uniqueness of SJM, summary jury trial, as the only alternative dispute resolution with the jury. The presence of the jury in this case gives the approach a unique perspective to how the disputes are handled and resolved. Both the text and the article highlight the approach as a good way of convincing both disputants the advantages of using SJM, using the likely outcomes that could occur as a result of a full jury trial or simply a court case for that matter. The journal article expands the topic by presenting SJM as a one-of-a-kind ADR approach that is separate from professional bias and one that is likely to have interesting and agreeable resolutions by disputants. After quite a lengthy search, I was finally able to find an article by Michael Byers, an author with RemiNetwork.com. The article was explaining the advantages of using ADR compared to court and strategies for minimizing cost when early intervention fails. What I found interesting here is that the comparison presented by the author highlighted when to opt out for a mini trial. The author suggests that if the amount in dispute is less than the legal minimum fee, then going for a less costly mini trial is much more sensible. I find it an interesting rule that is applicable to all ADR approaches when deciding whether or not to opt in or out of court settlements or not. And that is about it for this evening. Thank you for spending time with me as always, and see you all soon.